got to reset my head here. The shop shows the evidence of what just happened, which was, oh, we're almost done, and then wham! It can happen to you. Hey everybody, I'm about to embark on, I think, my most ambitious machining project yet. My whole life, I've been obsessed with bank vaults. I love bank vaults. I love circular, early 20th century bank vaults. There were several companies making them. They made them under quite similar circumstances. They made them similar to each other. And I have done a bit of work towards this end. Here is a test pattern. And there's a lot to go over in here. There's a lot to go over in here about what's going on and how it's going on. But suffice to say that this piece of acrylic, by the way, if you're going to machine thick acrylic, go get some cast, not extruded acrylic. Cast acrylic machines like a dream. Like there, look at that. The whole base of my mini drill press is cast acrylic. Oh, it's so pretty. Anyway, the cast acrylic was just a test. What's really gonna happen is, I've got this thing which sat and got cut for like 15 hours by my new powered hacksaw. This is my vault. So I'm going to make a vault door out of this. This weighs a freaking ton. Doesn't matter how much this weighs. Right now, this is a cut edge. I am going to clean this up on the lathe, and I'm going to turn it into a perfect cylinder, right? So I'm going to clean up the outside edge, clean up both faces, and then we're going to get started plotting out what's happening in this construction. I'm going to make a big fat frickin' hinge for this. There's so many parts. There's a lot of parts to this. They are non-trivial, these parts. And I think I understand the whole thing in my head, but we'll see if my hands agree. So to the lathe, and we're going to do some cleaning up. Lovely, marvelous. Ooh. It's the pretty puck of heavy. The pretty puck of heavy. Yeah. I don't know how you make your dollhouse scale vault doors, but I start with a giant chunk of steel, or I think it's actually cast iron. I'll have to look up the eBay auction. Anyway, this is where we're at. Next thing I need to do is to start hogging some holes in here. I need to put a hole almost all the way through the middle of this, only about, that stops about a ½ inch from here. And then I need to mill out some channels. And this eventually is going to get 3 steps, and they'll all be angled slightly, so this vault door can go into its closure. However, that is going to be like the last step I do to this thing, because once I make these angled, it becomes much harder to hold on to this thing. So this is where we're at right now. I'm going to call it a day and see you in a little bit when we're back to doing this. Well, good morning, everybody. Hi. Adam Savage here in my cave, and we're making progress on the vault. And it looks like I've made a lot of progress. It looks like I've made a lot of progress. But I have not made as much as it might look like. Hold on, let's clear this out. Oh my God, this is the... Anyway, where we are at with the vault is that I'm not much farther than I was with this piece when we last left. I turned these brass rings to go on here, which was everything about this is hard. Everything about this build is like kind of intense in a really, really lovely way. I'm having a lot of fun. This thing weighs like 15, 20 pounds. And I'm about to hang it on a hinge. The neck, so there's a bunch of things that need to happen. This needs to get cut at a taper. My rough estimation from looking at research photos is that the taper is around 10 degrees, but I think it could be much less than that. I went and did a lot of work while you weren't looking, and I made this hinge. I'll show some B-roll of this. This I did off camera. I just needed the mental space to do that. And I'll tell you some things that I'm learning. Removing tool marks is so hard. That means removing all evidence of machining. And here's the thing is like, I can show it to you like this and it looks really, really nice. Like video does a lot to sort of hide crimes. But if you hold it up really close and you look at it really close here, you can see, and also frankly, there are little tiny things like okay, so this is supposed to be like 6 feet high, which means every time there's like a slightly larger radius around an edge, like it tends to throw the scale off. And I don't even know how I'm going to eventually lap the back. That's only a few microns, but it's going to take me hours to make that perfect. Anyway, the pieces that I've been making, oh yeah, look at that. Here, let's go. Oh. So again, you know, I still got some tool marks that make this look a little doot-doot-doot. This is a set of stacked 3/8 bearings on a like an 1/8 inch center, and they're meant to, yeah, all of the load is torsional here on the side. That's what this stack of bearings is meant to offset. Here, while we're here, let's just look at my ring gear again. Oh, so pretty. Okay, so the next steps for hanging, this door, let's see if I can do this here. The display mode of this door is going to be on a platform. Square platform about 10 inches on a side is my guess, 10, 12 inches. The door will not swing all the way open 180 so that I don't have to make the platform support the door on the way on the other side. But now, oh, right. I am not going to buy a 2-inch thick chunk of steel and cut the door in it. That I'm not going to do. And they don't do that in the real banks. The vault doors, the metal that you see is like 1 inch thick, and then there's concrete and reinforced rebar and hardened stuff and quartz. Who knows what's in there? No, the way this will be displayed will be that there's a 1/2 inch plate of aluminum that will be the face of the vault, the outer face that the door hangs in and the hinge attaches to. And then I'm going to create the backing with some rich light, I think, and maybe even clear acrylic. The still TBD. But a 1/2 inch piece of aluminum in which I need a 6-inch hole, that is non-trivial. Yes, I could cut this out on a metal bandsaw, but I don't have, I'll be honest, that my my Jet 14-inch bandsaw wouldn't be able to cut a 6-inch hole in 1/2 inch 6061 aluminum. In my experience, that kind of cut will get so hot so quickly, the aluminum will gall in the blade, and jigsaw blades, your mileage may vary on these things, because my friend Laura Kampf, I've seen her cut, 3/4 inch plate of steel using a jigsaw blade. She's like, a ninja with that stuff. But for me, a saw and aluminum don't get along very well together. I like that. That's why I like the powered hacksaw. But the powered hacksaw isn't going to cut a hole in aluminum. So there's an old tried and true method, which took me 5 minutes to do 90% of the bulk removal of this piece. And that is to drill a ton of holes. So I put my vault on a piece of aluminum and I drew a circle around it. And then with a 3/8 inch jobber drill, I drilled 1,000,000 holes. And then I took a jigsaw and just cut through them. This method, wait. There we go. There it is. So now what I've done is I've roughly mounted it to this lathe plate. This thing is so heavy. I've roughly mounted it to this lathe plate. And that's how I will make the interior perfectly 6 inches. Then I'm going to drill the holes into the door and to the door frame for the hinge blocks. And even though these are very, very tiny, and this whole thing is going to be held up with 28 M2 screws, I'm supporting like 20 pounds with a bunch of M2 screws. I hope this works. I have a plan B if I need it. I do. I have a plan B if I need it. And that would involve actually drilling and threading into the hinge pieces here through the plate. I have enough meat to get like an M6 in there, but I hope I don't have to do that. But also there's a little bit of slop in these holes, so I'm hoping that allows me to hang this door nice and square so that it swings in. There's a lot around this. Plus I won't be able to open. Right, the taper has to be cut for the door to be able to open with the hinge. I just have to figure out how big that taper is. So we're gonna mount the hinge. We're gonna the next stage is for me to put this on the lathe and start to trick it out. So do that. First, we remove the chuck the existing chuck. And I've got the 6-jaw chuck jaws reversed to hold on to big stuff, and that's made it a little bit difficult in the recent days because that's not the best way to hold on to small stuff, but I still haven't finished the final cutting on the vault door, so I'm still leaving it in this orientation for now. But we're gonna pull it. My lathe has a tool room lathe, and tool room lathe only means that you can cut most of your threads and your particular speeds and feeds without having to change gears. That it basically has in it all of the settings you want out of a lathe. When you buy like a small Craftsman lathe, it's gonna come with sets of gears depending on whether you're cutting metric threads or imperial threads, and there's all sorts of other little details that matter on the smaller lathes because they're smaller. They don't have as much complexity built into their gearboxes, whereas this thing has a spectacular amount of complexity built into it. So the chuck itself is held on, instead of being threaded, it's 6 cam locks. And you put the piece of wood down to protect your waves because this is a big heavy chunk of steel and it's very heavy. Oh my God. Then there's these 6 holes, so you always make sure that they're, I gotta plug in my compressor. Let's see here. You always make sure that the receiving holes have no debris or swarf in them, and that the taper is good and clean. This is really not that necessary for what I'm about to do, like doing all of that, but best practices. Every time you do it, you do the same thing. I think we can remove that because I don't think, let's clean the back of this. All right. So to do these, I do each one a little bit to make sure they're all set. And then I tighten. This one, this is a 6-pin cam lock, but some of the things you bolt to it only have 3 pins, and this is one of those. This plate. So feels good. Okay, I think we can tighten these down. I've got it sitting on a piece of wood so that when I cut all the way through, I don't cut into my actual lathe plate. I don't know how this insert is going to take this interrupted cut, but we shall see. Damn, I'm really within like a few thou here. It's not that I'm really very happy with that. Okay. I don't want to use this bit for this. I think is it really this one? Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. That's how this should work. And let's just make sure I can fit all the way through. Yep. That's great. That's tilted there towards that. Yep. Okay. We're going to do a spin up and just see how good we feel about it. That's too fast. That's too unbalanced and too fast. So we're going to go slow. Better. Okay. I want to see. I am really close here, so I've gotten this piece incredibly close, like within like 10 thou of the outer diameter of this. And I'm going to want more space between the two when I actually go and do the thing. But for aligning the hinges, I want a super tight arrangement that's tighter than I will need. And that's what we're going to do. This makes me so happy. Look at that. Oh, it's great. So great. That is amazing. How tight that is. I'm so happy. Okay, so this is the front door. Shut the front door. I have noticed bank vaults the hinge always goes from narrow to wide. And some bank vaults, the wide is on the outside, and basically the orientation is sometimes reversed between banks. But we are going to... All right, so I ran into a thing in which I realized when I put the vault door on a flat, it spun, which actually when I confirmed with a straight edge, that it was slightly crowned in the middle. It was not perfectly flat. And this being perfectly flat is important to me. So I'm running like, I'm removing 1,000 on automatic feed, cross feed, which I rarely use. That's all you need to know. There is my lathed face of the vault door. I want to remove all these tooling marks from it. And this is a lapping plate. This is specifically for the operation of making something nice and super flat. There we go. Let us run a stone on here. Looks and sounds great. I'm just gonna that's flat enough for my needs. But lapping compound, what are we gonna use? 400 grit. We're gonna start with some 400 grit.
There you go, you can kind of see. Now, right now, with the pass I did on the lathe, it's about 0.5 15 microns lower here than it is here. I should be able to lap this out of there. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, I see progress. All right, here, let me show you progress. Yeah, that's better. Oh, God, it is going to take a long time. All right, I've been lapping this thing now for the better part of an hour, which I know in the grand scheme of things is no time at all. I started out with 400 grit lapping compound on my actual lapping plate, which that's what this is. And then I wasn't making progress because I still had some turning marks in the face. So I went to 220 grit sandpaper. I went to 3 sheets of that to level it. And I was using the spinning aspect of the drill to do this. And I started to ask myself, am I getting an artifact while spinning where I'm going to cup high on the sides and end up making it proud in the middle rather than concave in the middle? And the answer is yes, I did that by like a micron. So I put it back on the lapping plate, and now it's actually steadily getting harder to move, which means it's getting flatter. So I'm gonna check it out in just a second. I'm currently making a call about what up and down is on this thing. And I am specifically, I'm doing this because when I put the hinges in, I have to know what is up and what is down. So this is the bottom, that's the top. This is now really square within a reasonable parameter. And now I'm gonna crazy glue it. Then I'll take care of getting rid of this stuff later. I'm not going to be holding it on to it with this crazy glue. This crazy glue, this CA glue, is simply to keep the orientation between the safe and the wall sacrosanct, so I can put this in. Basically, I can put this in my vise now, and I get up and down, and I don't have to come up with a weird mount for this. Okay. All right. All right. I know how to do this then. I know. Once I have this clamped, I can do the drilling. And I know this is not a reliable method to get perfect orientation. It is going to be very close, and it is going to be within the tolerance I need it to be. What I have to figure out here is where, let's see, here we go. This is my layout based off of corner measurements. So as long as I know where these two inside corners are, I can extrapolate and drill all 12 of these holes into the door. But what I need to know is, what are the relationships between, right? I need a center line here. I need the center line here, center, and its relationship to this corner. Oh, right. Okay, that's really pretty straightforward in terms of a measurement layout. Let's see here. I'm operating off the assumption that I don't have to be perfectly center. I can be a few thou off. But I did work hard to try and drill the holes in these hinges on center. So what I've got is 490 thousandths. Half of that is 0.245. Yes. So 0.245. And then half of that, oh right, is 0.49. Okay, so from center, you go this way.
Half of 49/100 is 0.245.
Yeah, okay, I'm right. So you go 0.245, and then it's just the distance here, right? Yes. So it's just that depth, which turns out to be 0.508. So 0.245 plus 0.508 is 0.753. Right? 0.753. Okay, so from 0, 0, I go to the right, 0.2, nope. From 0.0, I go to the right, 0.753. Oh, right. And then the question is, what is the distance between these two, like that? I come up 1.825. 1.825, half of that 1.825, that would be 0.9625. 9.125. Oh. So then I go up. Up 9.125. Oh, a number 52. I can't get this wrong. If I screw this up, I kind of have to rebuild this door part. I have my chuck mounted and centered onto my magnetic chuck. Yeah! I've got my vault door mounted to the magnetic chuck, and I'm starting to make the cuts. And it's looking like it's the 10% angle I kept seeing is accurate. We'll see. I'm gonna keep on cutting away, and we'll see how we go. Dude, it's starting to look like a thing. It's starting to look like a thing. What's going to happen now is it's late in the day. I'm going to clean up and I'm going to come in tomorrow morning and I'm going to test fit this and see if I can't get operation on the door. I'm terrified that there's some main parameter I have gotten wrong from the get-go and need to restart this whole thing from scratch. Hopefully, that's not the case. But if it is the case, it's not the end of the world. See you guys tomorrow morning. I bolted last night. I knew I was not going to get anything done in time, so I left it right here. I have like 6 more screws to tighten. Oh man, I'm so spooked. I'm spooked because this is very plausibly where I figure out I've been doing something wrong this whole time. Spooked isn't the word. I just, I'd rather not have to start again from scratch. I messed up in some abiding way. And I can hear some of you. I feel like I can hear some of you. Why don't you just draw things in CAD first? You would solve problems like this before they happen, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And there is a part of me right now that feels absolutely yes, there's a part of me right now that feels a little bit dumb for not having CAD'd this. The problem here is that my door is too thick. In scale, it's just way too thick. And it should have a double hinge. So, reader, I've worked so hard on this surface. I think I know what to do. Oh, I know exactly what to do. Okay. Everything goes in. Everything goes in. I'm going to slice it here and the pins will come out there. It's going to be slightly thinner than I wanted it to be in scale. But that allows me to carry forward It does. It allows me to carry forward the most amount of the work I have already done. It means that, it means that I have to put this on the magnetic chuck, which is still on the lathe. Okay, everybody. So what I'm gonna try and do today is all of this detail here in the door. I'm gonna push it back the better part of an inch. Yeah, 3/4 of an inch. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Don't get me wrong, I'm super disappointed. But at the same time, I think I said this yesterday. I hope I don't have to do this again from scratch. There's an aspect to the way that I want to build that is itself improvisatory. And when you improvise, you are, opening up to failure. Oh, yeah. Ooh, hey, don't you tip over. Don't you do it. One last one. These will all still work, won't they? Yeah, I mean, I could recut them if I have to. Actually, it might make sense. Oh, wait, I kept the markings here, right? I did. Over here. I did. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we release from its prison here. And oh, also, hey, for those of you who were watching me lap and telling me I was doing it wrong by using multiple grades on the same lapping plate, I heard you. Yeah, no, I went and looked it up last night and saw that that was not best practice. That's fine. Oh, really? Really? Yep. Door's too thick. Error. I messed so many other things up. This is where I'm like flustered and I'm making mistakes. I should have drilled these holes after I drilled these slots. Interrupted cuts on the lathe are much harder. And I remembered that when I was first putting this together, but I'm like, I have a goal now. The goal is to get this hung in the door frame by the end of the day. That's unrealistic, but we'll see if I can get there. I'm at the stage of the day where I'm making like dumb mistakes, right? Like, I should have drilled these holes after I made the slot cuts because interrupted cuts on the lathe are just brutal. All that rattling is movement, and movement is your enemy unless it's rotational movement. Vibration. In any machine you are ever building, vibration is the enemy of the efficiency of the machine. Vibration is energy that's going lateral or in other directions than the direction you want it to go in. I'm just trying to make myself feel better with a little lesson. I gotta say, I love, like, my life feels so good. I love doing this channel. And there are moments when I am like learning on something like this where I'm like, all right, here we go. We're gonna keep on keeping on, and hopefully I can finish this by the end of the day. See, I put back on the heavy duty. The reason I keep swapping out the cross slide for this is because I'm doing heavy cuts in steel, and when you're doing that, you really want, if you can, to have as much rigidity as possible. And I learned this trick of this big block here from Stefan Gottswinner, and it's a great trick, man. It has really, really done me a solid. So I was getting a lot of vibration. This cut's done. That cut I'm happy with. Now I'm going to go in and do the last two interrupted cuts all the way to the bottom. And Here comes the vibration. Why? Ay, ay, ay. I gotta take my lathe apart now. All right, are we back to zero? We're back to zero. The issue was that when I swap out the cross slide for this meaty non-cross slide, I have a pin and the pin went too far and slipped and was just getting in the way. I should have been able to, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Yeah, I didn't see it. So here we go. We're back to. Things are going pretty good. Yeah, I'm back to where I was this morning. I am 0.65 inches narrower. Again, it's still beautiful. It's still going to be awesome. Why am I leaving this in here? It's no longer square. I don't know exactly, reader. The seat for the ring gear. That was just getting past its own burr. That is an easy fit. Not high tolerance, but it doesn't need to be crazy high tolerance. This is also in, yep. So before I proceed with anything, I think the next thing is to make sure it fits in the door. The door. All right, so. You want to join me over here? This whole thing sort of really shows the state of my brain, which is also in and of itself kind of a mess. Yeah, that's true. I just mean in terms of like messing around with this thing. Yeah, see, there we go. We barely got there, but we got there. There we go. Walk, paw, paw. So if it sits like this. Dude! It is 3 o'clock. I came in at 9:30. This is where I was hoping, this is where I wanted to be at 9:35. Okay. I am relieved. I am very, very relieved. Look at me. My forehead is filthy. This is one of those days where I come in and I just walk right up to the shower and just... Here's where the disconnect was happening to me. At a 10-degree angle, I'm literally touching the side. So for my 12mm pins, for my 12mm pins, I considered going with smaller pins on this one, but my difficulty aesthetically is that I'm only got 12 pins where normally it's 24. If I use thinner pins, which are more correct to the pins of the original safe doors, they look too anemic because they're too much space in between them. So for what I'm doing here, the 12 millimeter pin is important, but it means that this last step is fatter than it is in scale on the normal thing. So basically all this is a long way of saying the hinge properly hangs this door. Holy cow, I can't believe that. And it is really beautiful. Oh, there's a tiny little bit of movement there. That's fine. Oh, I see where that movement is. Yeah, okay. I have a little tiny bit of movement in the hinge here, but the mechanism itself has no budging. So I'm gonna build a base for this right now, and then I'm gonna clean up the shop. That was an adventurous day. I think this is a reasonable place to wrap this puppy up. I need some days to think about what I'm doing here. I think I need some look at that tolerance. Listen, there's a lot about me as a machinist that I know I'm faking it. Right? Like, yeah, like I take a lot of shortcuts. I don't always take the time to set something up. I am always attuned to where a measurement is mission critical or not, because you need to be when you're on the clock, and that feeds my impatience in just the right way or just the wrong way, depending on how you want to look at it. But despite all of my failings as a machinist, I'm sure the audience for this video included some veteran machinists. Because I'm sure as I screw things up, you are reminded of your youthful self. And I also know that there are times that many of you see mistakes I'm making as I'm making them before they have made me pay for them. And despite all that, and my shortcuts and my impatience and my desire to finish by improperly close goals, I have 4 hinges on a main hinge body with 28 bolts, and everything fits, and I've got a 20,000th space all the way around the door, 20,000ths of an inch. Yeah, that's equivalent to an 1/8 inch all the way around a vault door. That might be more tolerance than there is around a vault door, but I doubt it. And a couple of things. So I did a pressure fit into this bit of rich light here as a sample display stand, and I may stick with this, I may not. I may end up machining and exhibiting some surface details into this thing. A lot of them have like stuff like this going on, you know, the structure of the bank, and then there's like bolts like that. And I've got some M3 bolts that I think will be nice for that. Yeah, see how lovely that looks? Already like something starts to take shape. But here's the part that I'm really thrilled by. The door opens. Be still my heart. And I thought that it wouldn't be able to open past this, but it can, and it doesn't end up tipping this whole thing over, luckily. So what I really wanted, this is a coffee table tchotchke. This will sit on my coffee table. And it's likely that the back I make exactly this thick. And I do it I'm toying around with doing it in rich light. But I could also just box it in and machine a little cheater that goes there, around there. That would make my job a lot easier. I could also potentially do this in acrylic. There are so many options. Also, I will tell you something else I have learned about bank vaults, which is that we all assume, okay, by we, I guess I just mean me, I assumed. If you wonder where an ass out of me and umption comes, let me tell you a deep, weird 1970s story. There used to be this show called The Odd Couple that was based on a Broadway hit play called The Odd Couple about two divorced guys that lived together. One was neat and one was dirty. I remember telling my kids when they were like 11 that this show existed. It was like, they were like, a show about two divorced dads where one's sloppy and one's dirty? One's sloppy and one's neat? Sounds like you guys were really scraping the barrel for plots back in the 70s. It was a great show. It starred Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. And Jack Klugman, by the way, a pool hustler as a child, as a young man, was an absolutely brilliant pool player. Ha! You didn't know that. At any rate, there's a famous episode of The Odd Couple in which Felix Unger, played by Tony Randall, who's like the most neurotic, the most like physically and mentally neurotic character on television up till that point, he is like yelling at someone for making an assumption. And he says, when you assume, you make an ass, A-S-S, out of you, the you in assume, and me. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Cut to 1994, The Long Kiss Goodnight. One of the best Shane Black movies out there with Sam Jackson, David Morse, Gina Davis in like her career-defining role. I know there were many others, and I love her, but this role was like just one of my all-time favorites. At any rate, in that, Samuel Jackson makes a joke referring to The Odd Couple, and in the 90s, the 70s weren't that far away. They're now another 25, 30 years away. But he was like, you made an assumption, you made an ass out of me and umption. There you go. You didn't need to know that joke. It didn't matter to your life. And I'm sorry for sucking up the last, whatever it was, 180 seconds for that. I think we're going to let this one sit here. That was a hard one. That was a tough day. I wanted to give up. And I didn't want to give up. Both of those facts are true. But I appreciate you guys joining me for this. I've got a spectacular show and tell that's coming in tomorrow. I cannot wait. I'm also 3D printing some fun stuff, but the bank vault will remain. I think there's going to be at least one more video of it. Actually, there's probably two. There's one in which I do all the final dressing of this, which is like copper rings around here, 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 and then experimenting with the machine finish. Is a specific thing. That's a whole video in and of itself, doing machine finish details on this. And then getting all the racks to actually work. I need to recut all 12 of these little doohickeys that go into the end of my pins because none of them are centered. Every single one is different. I gotta figure out why. I have my thoughts, but... And then there is going to be the combination lock. And the combination lock is a whole day in and of itself, and I feel like it's later in the process. Let's get the aesthetics working. We got the mechanics. Oh, man. I just can't even tell you how exciting it is to have it that tight. I've bellied on along enough and about to this. I will see you guys later. Thanks for joining me. Bye.